there are massive opportunities clearly on the mineral side. The minister talked about the fact that the population is 1 billion or so and growing, steady GDP going forward of over 5%. In fact, Standard Chartered Bank has just recently increased that to about 7% per year up to 2030. And in the area of mining and mineral resources, we believe that about 30% of the global mineral reserves actually are in Africa. Anglo American is operating today or has a presence in 6 African nations. We are the largest employer in the continent outside of oil and gas. We have about 40% or so of our operating assets in South Africa alone, and 3 of our 7 main businesses reside in South Africa. We've invested about $20 billion over the last 10 years or so in Africa and largely in South Africa, and we're looking at further increases of that over the next 10 years to the tune of about $20 billion. We've got major projects that cut across all the major commodities that we produce. And as well, we just have started up production in a platinum mine in Zimbabwe. We employ about 1,000 people there, and we've invested now close to $500 million. In terms of what it takes to be successful, from our end, I think, first of all, partnerships. And I think, I'll use South Africa as the reference point for us. Again, we've been in South Africa working very effectively and successfully since the early 1900s. There is a lot of collaboration. We have, a couple years ago, in recognizing my recognition that we were not going to break ground as it related to safety and mine safety more broadly in South Africa, and we found the linkages between government and the unions to really break through some of the challenges and the barriers. And with that combination, we today have seen an improvement in our safety performance by over 70% since 2007. And I believe in a very modest sort of way that we've had an impact on the underlying safety performance of the mining industry, where we've seen improvement year on year by about 25%. We're applying the same methodology and same collaborative approach to now issues around health. Anglo American has been awarded by the Global Health Coalition, Business Coalition on Health around HIV, AIDS, TB, and malaria as having the #1 workplace program in the world. And we're applying that now, starting first in South Africa, but linking it to some of the other parts of Africa where we operate. As I said, we're the largest employer. We employ about 110,000 people. But I also would emphasize the fact that our jobs certainly come with respect for safety, for human rights, and for the welfare of our employees and our contractors and the local communities. We pay, and I think that as part of our success, there is an obligation, a responsibility to be contributing to corporate social investment. We do that to the tune of about $50 million on an annual basis, and we've only been increasing that despite the downturn, the economic downturn that we've been facing in the mining industry, and we're so hard hit. We've been increasing that contribution year on year. Similarly, we alluded to the skill sets, the capabilities, even the capabilities within the municipalities. We've been putting enormous efforts in that area, and again, spending about the same amounts of money. The minister also talked or mentioned sustainable development. I would suggest that we, Anglo American, in the mining industry are really leading the charge and the change in making modern mining wholly sustainable. And I would also suggest, and it gets back to what can Africa bring to the global community, that starting first with South Africa is the beacon for all of Africa in what can be achieved But I would also suggest it can be the beacon. Africa, and starting with South Africa, can be the beacon for the rest of the world. And again, I'm back to our experiences, whether it's around safety, whether it's around healthcare, whether it's around job creation. We are the only company in the world that have been asked by the UN Millennium Goals Initiative as part of the business call to action to make a commitment. We've committed to creating 25,000 jobs in South Africa alone by the year 2015. And we're applying that model, which is very, very successful, and we're capitalizing, sharing it with other industry partners in the country. We're applying it to Brazil, we're applying to Chile, we're applying to Peru, around the world. The other thing that we're doing, I think, again, back to the minister's comments, is connecting our suppliers on the ground in South Africa with what best practice looks like on a global basis. So we are connecting them to some of our suppliers in China, in India. We're looking at Brazil, and making those connections is only leveraging the capabilities on the ground in South Africa and ultimately benefiting everybody. So I'll just mention some of the challenges. I mean, what do we look for as we think about investing in Africa, or for that matter, any country around the world? We look for an open, well-regulated market allowing for the movement of goods and finance with reliable and fair rules. We in the mining industry are not making an investment for 5 years, 10 years. We're making an investment for 50 years, 100 years. We also are looking for good corporate citizen principles of business integrity. We want to make our investments in countries with strong and independent judiciaries. And we expect that they will play a major part in upholding the standards of the country. Transparency and accountability are a good signal to send out to the international marketplace. And lastly, it's already been highlighted, but the issue of infrastructure. I mean, issue of infrastructure, and if you'll forgive me, there may be lines that go out to the various ports, but if the lines are not dependable or reliable, there is an issue. So we've got to make sure that those are in place, whether it's rail, whether it's port systems, whether it's road systems, and the pressures on improving them or enhancing them are only greater. There's also the issue of electricity, power generation, water availability, and these are all things that are big challenges in all parts of Africa.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Cynthia Carroll, for a very comprehensive overview there of your investment strategy.
Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.